Welcome to the Table of Grace. We are diving deep into a fascinating stack of sources today, all focused on, well, a really foundational question. What is the secret to achieving true, lasting intimacy with the divine?
It's a huge question, isn't it? And what's really interesting about these sources we're looking at is how they take these core biblical stories, Mark, Luke, Galatians, Romans, John,
hmm
and they read them less like just history and more like deep metaphors for our relationship with God.
Metaphors exploring what exactly?
Well, the whole stack really hammers home this stark contrast, almost aggressively,
Mm.
between two paths. You've got the structured way, religious law, and then this other path, the liberated way of grace.
Okay, so our mission here is to unpack something pretty counterintuitive that these sources highlight.
Right.
We often think, don't we, that getting closer to God means getting better, working on ourselves, striving for moral perfection.
That's the usual assumption, yeah.
But these sources argue that exact effort, that striving, can actually be the biggest obstacle.
It's a paradox.
It is. They're saying that recognizing your needs, your flaws, is somehow the fast track to connection. So let's see how they build this case.
Okay, let's start where these sources really dig in.
Hmm.
The story of the woman with the issue of blood. Mark chapter 5. It's just packed with symbolism.
Oh, absolutely. So we meet this woman. She's been physically suffering for 12 years. And straight away, the sources jump on that number, 12.
Yeah, 12 is a big one. Represents order, doesn't it? The tribes of Israel.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, the law itself.
Exactly. And she'd spent everything she had, suffered under all these doctors, basically trying every human system, putting in all the effort, all the expense.
And it only made things worse.
Hmm.
She's like the perfect picture of failed self-effort. 12 years of time, money, trying harder. And it led to ruin, physically and financially.
Her suffering wasn't just physical then.
No, the sources read it as a metaphor. It's the exhaustion you feel trying to fix yourself by following all the rules, every system. But then comes the turning point.
Which isn't her figuring out her illness better?
No, it's when she heard about Jesus.
Yeah.
That's the pivot. Shifting focus away from the problem, away from her own failed effort.
Towards the solution.
Precisely, towards the solution.
And this is where that distinction the sources make becomes so important. Between the crowd and this one woman,
Right.
she somehow touches him in this huge throng of people, and Jesus stops dead. Who touched me?
And the disciples are just baffled, aren't they? They're like, what do you mean? The crowd is thronging you, pressing against you. Everyone's touching you.
It seems obvious, yeah.
But that's the core of it. The crowd represents so many people, maybe even people close to church, physically near the divine.
Yeah.
But they're just kind of going through the motions,
Looking on.
looking on, watching the spectacle. They're physically close, but there's no urgency because maybe they don't grasp how deep their problem is, or they think their own goodness is enough.
It's like a formal touch, not a desperate one.
Exactly. Formal, curious maybe, but not driven by need.
But this woman, she knew her need was desperate. And she didn't just push through the crowd, she pushed past huge legal barriers. I mean, think about it. A bleeding woman was ritually unclean under the law.
Mm-hmm. Big time.
Touching anyone, especially a rabbi, a teacher, that was a serious violation. She'd make him unclean too, according to the law.
But her need just bulldozed right over the law. She pushed past all those rules because she had this radical belief.
That just touching the edge of his clothes would be enough.
Yes. And that act is so symbolic, the sources are clear. Touching the garment really means the tassel, the fringe on his prayer shawl.
Okay, what did that symbolize?
Those fringes, that's it. They represented God's righteousness, his covenant faithfulness. So her action wasn't about her own worthiness at all.
It was faith in, what did you call it? Imputed righteousness.
Imputed righteousness. Let's unpack that for a second.
Yeah, please. What does it mean right here?
It means she believed his worthiness, his perfection, could be credited to her account, essentially, instead of relying on her own standing, which was, frankly, zero under the law.
So she wasn't asking because she was good.
Not at all. She was asking because he was good. She needed something external, borrowed perfection, to cover her failure, both legal and physical. The law basically shouted, unclean, stay away.
But Grace whispered.
Grace whispered, your desperation is your qualification. Come closer.
Wow. Okay, so if we take that and apply the metaphor like the sources do to the larger church, they draw this line between her 12 years of bleeding, which meant she couldn't have children.
Right. Unable to bear fruit.
And the institutional church. How does that connection work?
Well, the sources see it as an analogy. A religious system, a church, that relies mainly on works, on following the law, on human effort.
Like her 12 years with the doctors.
Exactly like that. It ends up stagnating. It gets exhausted. It can't really flourish or develop spiritually. It can't bear children, metaphorically speaking, because relying only on your own strength eventually just makes you sick and barren.
Which leads us right into why Jesus caused such a stir, doesn't it? This offense of the cross idea. The sources argue really strongly that Jesus' biggest fights weren't with Rome, not Caesar, not Pilate. They were with the religious leaders, the Pharisees, the experts in the law. Why? Why them?
Because religion often runs on a kind of moral bookkeeping. Good deeds get rewarded, bad deeds get punished. God is expected to save the good people,
The deserving ones.
the ones who follow the rules.
Yeah.
And Jesus just shattered that whole system. He offered immediate free forgiveness and healing to the people everyone else considered bad.
Tax collectors, notorious sinners.
And this ritually unclean woman, to the people who'd worked so hard to maintain their ritual purity, their goodness, this felt like, well, like an outrage, a total injustice.
It flips the whole script. They wanted fairness based on effort, and Jesus offered grace that seemed totally unfair.
Disruptive grace, exactly. And we see this pattern way back, as the sources point out, using Cain and Abel, especially when John references it.
Ah, okay. How does that story fit in?
Well, think about their offerings. Cain brought the fruit of the ground, the result of his own work, his effort, human achievement.
Right. What he produced.
Abel brought a lamb, a sacrifice, something external, pointing towards reliance, towards grace, towards a substitute.
And Cain's offering wasn't accepted.
No. And notice what happened next. The spirit of Cain, that pride in personal effort, didn't just get sad, it got angry. It persecuted Abel, the one who relied on grace.
So there's a danger there. That religious effort, if it turns into pride.
It often turns on those who are just resting in grace. It feels threatened by them.
That is a really jarring thought. If you're relying on your own fruit, your own goodness, you actually become the problem, an obstacle for others and even for yourself.
Yeah. And that mindset, it leads us perfectly into Luke 15, the parable of the prodigal son. But specifically, the character we usually ignore.
The elder brother.
The elder brother. He's basically the embodiment of that Cain spirit, but inside the family of faith.
Right. He comes home from working hard in the field. Here's the party for his runaway brother, and he's furious.
Absolutely livid.
And he gives his father this resume, doesn't he? Look, I've slaved away for you all these years. I never disobeyed your orders.
Textbook self-righteousness.
And he refuses to go into the celebration. He feels cheated, even though he was the good son. And his complaint is so revealing. You never even gave me a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends.
It's petty, but it shows everything. He has this deep heart of lack, even though he technically has access to everything the father owns.
And the father's response.
It's crucial.
Yeah.
Son, he says, you are always with me and everything I have is yours. The sources really analyze this. The elder brother saw the relationship purely as a contract, service for reward, duty.
Not inheritance, not intimacy.
Yeah, it was a job. And notice that detail about his friends.
Yeah, celebrate with my friends, not with the father. What's the implication there?
It implies he saw the father's house, the place of obedience, of rule-keeping, as fundamentally restrictive, like real joy, real fun, real celebration. That had to happen outside, away from the father, with his buddies who presumably weren't so strict.
So his perfect obedience actually made him bitter and proud.
Totally. It built a wall. It blocked the intimacy that was already his by right. He had the inheritance on paper, but he couldn't enjoy it because he felt it had to be earned, and maybe that he hadn't earned enough fun yet or that the father wouldn't approve.
His obedience became his prison. And this isn't just a story point, is it? Paul spells this out theologically in Romans.
Oh, absolutely. Romans 4, verses 4 to 8, Paul makes this super clear distinction between wages and gifts.
As he put it.
He basically says, look, if you're working for your standing with God, then any reward you get isn't grace, it's payment. It's wages owed for services rendered.
And wages, by definition, are earned, so they can't be grace.
Exactly. If you're trying to achieve moral perfection to merit God's favor, the relationship becomes transactional. But true blessing, Paul says, and the sources echo this, comes from something else entirely.
Which is?
The forgiveness of sins, not from reaching some state of flawlessness.
Okay, so that's the paradox of blessing that links the elder brother back to the woman with the issue of blood.
Right on.
The elder brother stood there saying, I never broke a commandment. But in doing that, he disqualified himself from the blessing King David raves about.
The sheer joy, the relief of having your sins forgiven, your transgressions covered. The elder brother didn't think he needed covering. He thought his obedience was his covering.
While the woman knew she was completely uncovered, completely unclean.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So according to this whole analysis, real intimate connection with God hinges on seeing your constant daily need for forgiveness, for grace. Like the woman knew she was desperate and the younger son knew he was a total mess up.
It's realizing you're unworthy that actually drives you to the only one who can make you worthy.
Precisely. While self-sufficiency, even morally upright self-sufficiency, just leads to bitterness, judgment, and distance, like the elder brother.
Okay, so let's synthesize this. We looked at Mark, Luke, Romans. If we pull it all together, what's the bottom line for you, the listener?
It comes back to Jesus' question, really. Who touched me? Are you part of the crowd? The elder brother, the legalist, standing by, maybe trying to avoid sin, keeping your distance, but never really connecting, never being transformed, just watching the spectacle, waiting for your wages. Or are you the sinner, the woman, the prodigal, the one who knows they're a mess, knows they're bleeding out, knows they've failed, and you rush forward, pushing past the rules, past the critics, because you know Jesus is the only possible solution for your biggest problem, which is your sin, and your own worn-out attempts to fix it yourself.
So we have to ask ourselves that question. Am I the one who knows my need and rushes forward in desperation? Or am I just watching?
That's the challenge.
So the final takeaway from synthesizing all these sources seems incredibly powerful. Intimacy isn't really about minimizing your mistakes. Trying to do that often just makes us proud and judgmental, like the elder brother.
It does. It puffs you up.
Instead, intimacy comes from maximizing your reliance on grace, from recognizing your constant moment-by-moment need for the forgiveness Jesus offers, the party, the healing, the inheritance. It's all available, but it comes after you admit you need it, after you acknowledge the sin, not before.
That's the critical sequence. The blessing follows the acknowledged need. We tend to identify with the good people, the ones who think they deserve rescue. We criticize the desperate ones grabbing onto Jesus.
Yeah, we do.
But here's that final thought to chew on. The elder brother already owned everything. The father said so. What essential blessing, what inheritance, what intimate celebration are you maybe blocking yourself from right now by insisting you're basically good enough? Or that, like him, you never disobeyed the command. Realizing that the blessing only flows through acknowledged need and forgiveness. Well, that knowledge changes how you approach every single moment, doesn't it?